All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another fantasy football team by team review here. Um, I hope you guys enjoyed my Detroit Lions one. I got some positive reviews about that. A lot of people seem to enjoy it, so it really motivates me to keep bringing you guys this content. Um, Hopefully, you guys learned something and could implement this and help yourselves win some money or some DraftKings or draft well this season. And let's get right into it. So, if you guys could tell by the purple, and I already said it a few times, but the next team that we're going to look over is still in the NFC North. We're going to look over the Minnesota Vikings. If you look at the Minnesota Vikings, in 2016, they finished 8-8, and on offense, they scored 327 points, which was good for 23rd in the NFL. While defensively, they only allowed 307 points, which was good for the sixth best in the NFL. They started off hot last season. I'm pretty sure they started off with 4-0, 5-0, but was ultimately they slowed down due to injuries and just inconsistencies. In terms of offense for Minnesota, uh, Sam Bradford was really good last year. I know a lot of people just don't have the highest opinions of Sam Bradford, but if you look at his numbers and if you look at his tape, Sam Bradford was excellent for them last year. He was really solid. And in terms of that offense, they had a terrible offensive line. And because of Stephon Diggs being injured, not injured, injured, not injured, and all that, you got to remember that Sam Bradford didn't really have a lot of big names to throw to. Stephon Diggs was his main receiver. He gets hurt, doesn't really play well because of he's dealing with some injuries. Kyle Rudolph was his main receiver. So Sam Bradford, given all that, still played excellent last season. Um, on defense, they were just spectacular. They really broke out as a group, led by Xavier Rhodes, Everson Griffin. They were just spectacular defensively. So let's move on into the Minnesota Vikings fantasy depth chart. At QB, we got Sam Bradford and Casey Keenum. Teddy Bridgewater is there. I don't know what his situation is. I'm pretty sure he's working his way back. He's throwing now, but Teddy Bridgewater, I don't think the Minnesota Vikings are planning on him being a real contributor for them this season. Um, Running back wise, Latavius Murray, Dalvin Cook, Jarek McKinnon, Bishop Sankey. Wide receiver, Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Laquan Treadwell, Michael Floyd, and Jarius Wright. And at tight end, Kyle Rudolph, David Morgan II, and Bucky Hodges. So let's move on to Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford, like I said, was really good last year. Teddy Bridgewater is still working his way back, so I'm not going to cover Teddy Bridgewater. I don't think he plays this season, so he's fantasy irrelevant. Bradford starting again. The Minnesota Vikings have one of the worst O-lines in the NFL, and because of that, Bradford really didn't have time to drop back, look through his reads, progress through his reads, throw intermediate passes, throw deep balls. He really had to hike it, drop back, and just quickly just either whether it was a quick slant or a quick out, he had to get rid of it quickly, otherwise he was going to get sacked. So because of that, his numbers kind of look lower than what it should be. Even so, he had 20 TDs passing, which seems low, but if you consider everything that he was dealt with, wasn't bad. And he only threw 5 interceptions, which is spectacular considering what he had to deal with. So Sam Bradford, despite putting up a really good NFL season in terms of actual performance, not fantasy, his fantasy numbers weren't that great, and he's currently not being drafted in fantasy leagues. I have him ranked as 23rd, but yeah, he should not be really drafted. Like I said in the Lions video, I am very opposed to drafting backup quarterbacks. I think it's just a waste of a pick. So moving on, we got Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray came over to the Vikings from the Raiders in the offseason last season. Murray battled through some injuries, but managed to run for 788 yards still on 195 carries, which amounted to 4 yards per carry. Murray also had 12 TDs. Now, if you paid attention to fantasy last year or watched the Raiders games, it seemed like the Raiders were trying to save Murray for the playoff run or keep him fresh because of all these injuries he was dealing with, or B, they just really didn't trust him that much because even when he was healthy, they were still cycling through DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard, and it was kind of a confusing situation. It almost got to the point where Murray was very boomer bust because he was so touchdown dependent. And in my opinion, the touchdowns, not just my opinion, but touchdowns are one of the most inconsistent things year to year. You can't predict touchdowns. So if Murray is as TD dependent as he seemed last season, he's not that great of a pick this year. Furthermore, Murray is coming off ankle surgery. Although he's supposed to be fine for the season, he is coming off ankle surgery in the offseason. And I don't think from what I've read, he hasn't really been able to participate in training camp because of that. Keep in mind that Murray's going to be running behind, like I said, one of the worst O-lines in football. They added Riley Reef and Michael Remmers? Mike Remmers? Yeah, Mike Remmers. Um, I live in North Carolina, so I should know that. He was a former Panther. Remmers is a solid tackle against solid to or good to below average um, rushers. But if you saw him in the Super Bowl a few years ago, Von Miller just handed it to him. Mike Remmers just had nothing. He couldn't do anything against Von Miller. A lot of people can't do anything against Von Miller. But because of that, Remmers has kind of had that unfair reputation of being terrible. Remmers is not bad. He's good against below average to average competition. But when you put him against the really good or the elite rushers, he tends to struggle a little bit. Riley Reef, the other guy they gave a lot of money to, he's just an average tackle. He's never even played left tackle before, so I think that's where the Vikings plan on playing him. Riley Reef's nothing special. They gave him a lot of money. I don't know why. Those two additions should kind of help the O-line, but not really. Going back to Latavius Murray, he's currently selected as the 42nd. I have him a 42nd overall running back. I have him somewhere around there, maybe a bit lower. In my opinion, Murray really carries no fantasy appeal for me this season. If he's available in like the later rounds, I might just say, all right, screw it, let me just pick him. But he's not gonna put up RB1 or RB2 numbers like last season. I think he's an RB4 with maybe some RB3 upside. So that's Latavius Murray. Let's move on to Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is one of everyone's favorite players this season, favorite rookies. He's been getting drafted very high. And if you watched him in college or paid attention to him in his highlight videos and stuff like that, I could see why. He's an explosive runner at Florida State. Always had that big playability, and he's shown that same burst in training camp. Dalvin Cook should seize the lead back role in Minnesota at some point throughout the season. I don't expect Latavius Murray to hold on to it throughout the entire season. With that being said, Cooks is still going to be running behind a very bad offensive line, so expectations should be lowered a little bit. Dalvin Cook is currently being taken as around the 20th running back for this upcoming season. That is way too high in my opinion, guys. And I'm talking strictly PPR here. Everything I say is PPR because that's what I play usually. Standard league, maybe Cook has maybe up to 20, but PPR, Dalvin Cook has no business being the 20th running back taken. I have him in the 30s to 40s. The reasoning is simple. Dalvin Cook is a rookie. He's also going to be battling with not only Latavius Murray, but also Jerick McKinnon, because Jerick McKinnon is the guy most familiar with that system. So he should get his too. I'm not saying like he should get his like 5 carries, 6 carries, but he should put up a fight. So Dalvin Cook's going to have to outperform both of those guys. Then he's going to have to somehow manage to be productive even behind a terrible offensive line. And because of all that, I don't think Dalvin Cook is in a great spot this season, and I think he's being extremely overdrafted. I am not high on Dalvin Cook this year. If you guys want to play him or pick him or draft him, you guys can do that, but I personally will not be. Moving on to the wide receivers. Real quickly, I mentioned Jerick McKinnon briefly. I don't think he's going to have a huge fantasy impact this season. I didn't really put him in here because I don't expect him to be drafted in many leagues. I don't expect him to be relevant. For those dynasty guys, maybe you pick him up because he could go to another team. He did put up solid numbers in Georgia Southern when he went to college. But in terms of this year in the NFL, he's not going to have any fantasy impact in my opinion. Anyways, back to wide receivers. We got Stefon Diggs. Now, Stefon Diggs is one of my favorite wide receivers this year, guys. I don't know how to put this. Like, I love this guy. I think he has such high potential this year. I love Stefon Diggs. Let me get into a few reasons why. Stefon Diggs is finally looking to have a fully healthy season. He's been very exciting and solid when he's on the field. However, he's managed to struggle to stay on the field. And for that reason, Stefon Diggs has never really been able to break out per se. Diggs is a really good route runner. He's a very solid route runner, and he's been a difference maker for the Vikings offense. Last season, Diggs had 84 receptions, 903 yards, and 3 TDs in only 11 games. Now, to put that in perspective, Stefon Diggs, I don't remember the exact stats, but the splits between, and I mentioned this in the next slide, but the splits between him being healthy and not on the injury report, like those numbers are completely so much drastically better than his numbers when he was listed on the injury report. And because of that, I do feel like Diggs tried to play his way through some injuries. He only played 11 games in his rookie season, so I feel like last season he tried to play his way through some of those injuries. And because of that, he was really lackluster in some games. I think he was used more as the decoy, but Diggs was not really that great in those games where he was listed on the injury report last season. I think he manages to stay healthy. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm really thinking he manages to stay healthy this season. Currently, Diggs is being drafted as around the 27th wide receiver. I think that's too low. He's inside my top 20. I am full aboard the Stephon Diggs hype train. If there was a Fantasy Breakout Player of the Year award, I would say Diggs is my favorite player. I really think he has a fantastic year, easily over 1,000 yards, maybe 85, 90 receptions, and more than 3 TDs. I really love Stephon Diggs this season, guys. I'm really high on him. Moving on, we got Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen was a solid wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings last season. He really had a breakout career year. He had 69 receptions, 967 yards, and 5 TDs. Keep in mind that 12 of those receptions and 4 of those yards came in one game. But regardless, Adam Thielen was still a solid contributor for the Minnesota Vikings last season. Thielen should regress this season because Stephon Diggs is returning. And like I said, I think Diggs finally manages to stay healthy. And while Diggs did play 11 games last season, I think he was a decoy for a lot of those games, and he really didn't play well when he was listed on the injury report. And so I think Thielen does regress a little bit, maybe a lot. But Thielen should still be a guy you target on your bench. Stephon Diggs has never played a full season healthy. I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping he can stay healthy, but Thielen's kind of a handcuff to Diggs because if Diggs gets hurt, Thielen is instantly in the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 conversation. But right now, with Diggs healthy, with Rudolph there, with Dalvin Cook, with Latavius Murray, with a bad offensive line, Thielen is no more than a wide receiver 4 for me. Currently, Thielen is being drafted around 47th. I have him in my 60s, so Thielen is going a little bit overdrafted. But I think that's mainly due to the fact that people are expecting Stephon Diggs to get hurt again. I think Diggs could stay healthy this season. I'm hoping so. And for that reason, Thielen is a little lower on my boards than he is on a lot of others. Real quick, I'm going to mention Laquan Treadwell. Laquan Treadwell has no impact this season for fantasy. I think for redraft leagues, I think for your dynasty people, he's a great prospect to hold on to because he's apparently really been impressive in this offseason. He's been working as the number 3 receiver, but this isn't the number 3 receiver of the Patriots or the number 3 receiver of the Steelers. This is the number 3 receiver for the Vikings. And Diggs and Thielen alone should have trouble getting a lot of value or getting a lot of stats and catches and yards. So I think Treadwell's going to be a solid contributor in real life, just not in fantasy terms. Moving on. We're going to move on to the tight ends. Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph was my tight end last year in redraft leagues. He was spectacular for me. I really didn't expect these kind of numbers, but hey, he showed up. He always wore those yellow gloves. If you guys watched his game, the Vikings last year, you know what I'm talking about with those yellow gloves. You can see him in the pictures below. That's how I kind of kept track of him. And his number, of course. Kyle Rudolph had a career year in 2016, like I said. He set new career highs in receptions and receiving yards with 83 and 840. He also hauled in 7 TDs, which was second highest in his career. Rudolph was a very solid contributor. I do think he's going to regress a little bit because of Diggs' return. Rudolph was a true receiving threat for Sam Bradford last year, and because their O-line was so bad, Bradford really just had a lot of dump-off passes and checkdowns to Rudolph, and Rudolph made a living just kind of underneath, and they also had him out wide a little bit. Rudolph was just very good for them last year. I really like Kyle Rudolph in terms of fantasy. Like I said, he should regress slightly this year because of Diggs' return, but I don't really see a lot of other great tight ends out there, and for that reason, he's being drafted as currently the 6th tight end, and I think that's very fair. I have him around there as well. Kyle Rudolph should have another solid season. While I don't expect 83 receptions, I'm thinking maybe 60, 65, 700 yards, 7, 8 TDs, which is very solid numbers for a tight end. So Kyle Rudolph, he's number 6 on my board. He's somewhere around there. I really like Kyle Rudolph. And yeah, so really quickly going back to the wide receivers and this offense in general, the Vikings have 27 strengths of schedule. So keep that in mind when you look at Stephon Diggs, when you look at Kyle Rudolph, when you look at Dalvin Cook. They have the 27th strength of schedule, which means they don't really play anyone that great, or they have a relatively easy schedule. And so, with all that being said, my final notes for the Minnesota Vikings upcoming 2017 fantasy football season. I love Stephon Diggs. I think he's being undervalued, underdrafted, and yeah, I love him. I think he's gonna have a breakout year, and he's my candidate for breakout player of the year. I think he easily tops over 1,000 yards. Um, in terms of everyone else on the offense, I'm not really that high on. I like Kyle Rudolph, but I'm expecting everyone to regress a little bit. Kyle Rudolph should regress a little bit. Latavius Murray and Adam Thielen both should regress. And Dalvin Cook is being grossly overrated, in my opinion. I'm really not high on Dalvin Cook at all. Uh, and so for that, and so that wraps up my Minnesota Vikings final notes. And if you have any more questions, follow me on Twitter at DFS Ultra. If you're interested in buying my MLB lineups, I'm kind of keeping up with it right now. So if I kind of seem spaced out a little bit, it's because I got an alert. Eric Thames hit a home run just now, and or just not just now, but he did hit a home run, and Christian Yelich just went yard 2. So that's what I was kind of keeping up on. So if I did kind of stop in the middle of the video and kind of spaced out for a little bit, that's what I was looking at. Leave any feedback or comments in the comment section below. I'm really working on how to make this better for you guys. So any kind of suggestion would be very awesome in the comment section below. And besides that, I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll wrap up the NFC North tomorrow with the Packers and the Bears. And yup, that's about it. I'll see you guys tomorrow.